Economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Marianne Street.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, in this reply to the Prime Minister's statement, I would like to extend my congratulations to Mr. Speaker on his ascension to that throne. I hope he enjoys the position. If he doesn't, I understand there's a vacancy coming up in Rome towards the end of the year, and he might find that of some interest. But I hope he also takes the opportunity to review conventions and definitions and make his own imprint on the House. I wish him well, Mr. Speaker. In reply to the Prime Minister's speech, I want to spend some time going to the heart of people's needs, and that is their health and the health of their children. In his speech in this debate 2 weeks ago, the Minister of Health, Tony Ryle, trumpeted his government's so-called successes in health. He trotted out the things he usually trots out: more doctors and nurses, although those figures have been roundly disputed and comprehensively debunked by the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists, together with the Minister's own ministry. He talked about more elective surgical procedures. Those are the things that one gets when one pays the DHBs to provide them. These are the easy wins, which is what this minister focuses on. But what are the statistics that the Minister of Health hides from? First of all, 3,701 more children were admitted to hospital last year than the year before. Nearly 4,000 children with preventable respiratory infections, preventable skin infections, and even some vaccine-preventable diseases were admitted to our hospitals around New Zealand last year than in 2011. Mr. Speaker, this is not what success looks like. This is what failure looks like. For every 100 Pākehā children admitted to hospital, there were 156 Māori children admitted and a staggering 251 Pacific Island children admitted. Mr. Speaker, this isn't a successful health system. This is a failing health system. Health inequalities, such as those that are demonstrated by the admission of children to hospitals, equal a bleaker future for our children and not that National Party's much vaunted brighter one. Mr. Speaker, health targets are by and large a good idea. We introduced them when we were in government, and this government has continued them, but they need constant revision. And I want to refer to a particular example that has come to my attention in recent times. An ophthalmologist was to operate on a small boy who had a genetic but surgically correctable sight problem. The boy was booked in for surgery on a Thursday afternoon, I think it was. At the last minute, the ophthalmologist had to cancel that boy's operation because the hospital needed to do 2 cataract operations in that period in order to meet their elective surgical targets. In other words, the number crunches came before that specialist's clinical decision on who was the priority for surgery that afternoon. Mr. Speaker, when we see this kind of thing happening in our hospitals, we know that the health targets, which the Minister is trumpeting on a daily basis, are in fact distorting the delivery of health services and not improving them. Mr. Speaker, in that story, the specialist told me that he felt demoralised by the compulsion to cancel that little boy's surgery so that he could do 2 much quicker cataract operations in its place in order to meet the minister's elective surgery targets. Mr. Speaker, these are targets gone mad, if that is what is happening. And I understand that this is not an isolated incident. So while the minister wants to get up and talk about particularly elective surgical procedure targets, then let him also say to this House what has to be cut in order to allow hospitals to meet those targets. Let me give another example, Mr. Speaker. At County's Manukau District Health Board, it takes now, depending on who you talk to, somewhere between 2 and 8 weeks to get a hip operation. At County's Manukau, between 2 and 8 weeks to get a hip operation. They have almost got to the stage, Mr. Speaker, where they are going out into the highways and byways, seeking out the halt, the lame and the blind. Let's throw some cataract operations in as well. And saying, have you got a dodgy hip? I've got a deal for you. Now, if that is not skewing the purpose of health targets, I don't know what is. In fact, recently the government was reported to be axing some of the elective surgical procedures on the basis of some advice from the National Health Committee, which comprises people for whom I have a great deal of respect. However, the particular procedure that they identified as possibly being one of the ones that could be taken out was grommets. The insertion of grommets for children, babies usually, infants, with ear infections, which sets them up to be able to hear properly, to get past their glue ear or their otitis media infection, which causes them not to be able to hear, and then allows them, paves the way for them to learn at school, to be responsive to their environment, and not to be problematic. Mr. Speaker, this minister is compelling advice being brought to him. He is compelling advice that he wants to hear. In other words, whatever you do, don't cut elective surgery to people who can vote. Don't cut elective surgery to the elderly. But go ahead and sacrifice elective surgical procedures for children because they don't vote. This cynical approach to the delivery of healthcare is the hallmark of this minister and needs to be stopped. Mr. Speaker, it is time to revise these health targets. Children's health is our best investment. Nearly 4,000 more admissions to hospital of children with preventable or poverty-related diseases in 2012 than in 2001 is not success in the health system, it is failure. This government is failing our children. Housing is one of the keys to this, and this government has done nothing in 4 years, now in its 5th, to improve health inequalities that stem from poor housing. This government also has a black hole where its plan for an ageing population should be. This is not success, Mr. Speaker, it is failure. For all of Tony Ryle's shoveling of negative questions off to other lesser mortals in his caucus, people are now seeing beyond this Teflon veneer, and the evidence of failure is piling up. Child poverty is something that needs to be addressed. Health interventions can stem the worst impacts of child poverty, but it is not a cure in itself. So the Minister of Health needs to get alongside the Minister of Housing and say, how can we knit our policies together that give our children the best chance? Opposing a decent living wage, opposing realistic minimum wage increases year on year are the things that will not improve the health of our children in this country. They will only make it worse. Mr. Speaker, the government is not a success, it is a failure.
The Honourable Tau Henare.